We all ready?
Ready.
All right, good evening. It's 7 o'clock. Time for our meeting to start. Let's please stand. Rise. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Welcome, everyone. I believe Jim is not feeling that well tonight.
He's under the weather, yeah.
Yeah, so hope he feels better if he's watching. Hope he feels better. So first, let's accept the agenda. I have no changes on here. Any?
Move we accept the agenda as presented.
Okay. Second by Rick. All right. Rick. And all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Approval of the minutes from May 7, 2025. I reviewed, I didn't see anything in there that needed to be changed. Did anyone find anything?
From May 7th.
May 7th, yes.
They all look good to me. As they usually do.
As they usually do. Thank you, Sharon.
Yeah, I'm okay with it.
All right. Someone make a motion?
I move we accept the minutes.
All right. Second?
I'll second him.
Second by Rick. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion passes. All right, communications, I have just one quick thing, and then I'm going to turn it over to a couple for some presentations tonight. I thought it'd be good tonight for us to hear some of the updates across town, also to get a presentation regarding charging stations. We had had a presentation about 2 years ago regarding this, toward the tail end of the pandemic. We've had a lot of changes over the last 2 years in terms of Brainerd Place coming online and other big projects. So I thought it deserved a revisit, especially with money that might be available from the state. So I'd like to bring up Malcolm Beeler to discuss that. Oh, yeah, right over there, please.
Okay, good evening. My name is Malcolm Beeler. I work for Weston and Sampson Engineers, and we provide this service. And Mike asked that I come and present on this, talking about using GIS to pick sites for potential charging stations. Next slide. I just want to touch upon real quick what EVSC is. Different criteria that can be used to evaluate locations, and then overview of the GIS mapping and how you can incorporate town plans with that. Next slide. This is a definition that comes from, there's references provided on the last slide if you all want to educate yourself further on the ins and outs of EVSE. But basically it's, the system includes electrical conductors, related equipment, software, and communications protocols, and I'll get into each of those in a little bit more detail. Next slide. There are in general 3 different types that are discussed. Level 1 is just a regular wall outlet. Is useful to those who might drive their car once a week, and I won't discuss that any further because it's pretty useless. Level 2 is a 240 volt AC. You can get a full charge in 4 to 8 hours, but you can pick up enough in a couple hours to allow you to get home or extend the range of your vehicle quite a bit. These are fairly commonly used in communities. The level 3 or the DCFC, direct current fast charge, those are the electric vehicle equivalent to a gas station. So if you wanted to plug in, again, the level 1, it's just a plug in a wall. That's not much. For the level 2, level 3, the installation is a bit more complicated. You have to have network, be able to communicate via Wi-Fi and all the security concerns that goes with that. You need to be able to communicate with the utility so that they can bill you and there's payment at the point of charging. And they even have what they call V2G, which is vehicle to grid. case you go the other way and you're dumping electricity onto the grid. But it, you know, the level 2 and level 3 require quite a bit of electrical tie-in and upgrade of the service locally, which I'll talk about more. Next slide. This one, there's a bunch of interesting information on the side, but I want to stress on the fact that, you know, by 2030, there's an intent to to convert over quite a bit to electric vehicles. And the state talks about 3-tiered approach, the first tier being the charging stations along the highways and the rest areas, you know, all those, the Tesla installed a bunch in those. Secondary is major routes. The state has secured $14 million grant, and that by 2030, they're going to install 8 dual port and 96 DCFC stations in communities, Stamford, Bridgeport, New Haven, Groton, Hartford, East Hartford, and Barkheim-Hempstead got one. They must have a powerful representative that swung that one for them. But the, you know, so the state's taking care of the secondary. So now we're talking about the tertiary level, which is the municipalities. And, you know, we see it as being beneficial to the municipalities because all these stations, they have apps. People drive electric vehicles have dozens of apps on their phones that allow them to interface with the charging stations, but also identifies where they are, and they will plan out their whole trip based on where charging stations are. So if you want to be on their route, it's a good idea to have your own stations. Next slide. So general criterion for judging, and there's a lot you could put into this. You can expand it, contract it, but these are some of the basic ones that really need to be thought of. Connectivity, utility, the finances of the whole thing. There's, you know, there's not a money tree out back that you can just go pick money off of. Accessibility and resiliency. Next slide. For connectivity, location, any real estate deal. You want, one of the important things as part of it, of the GIS evaluation, is modeling the usage. Because if you look at federal guidance on this, they talk about low use, medium use, and high use, and the payback, and your ability to secure vendors to sell you their equipment or to lease you their equipment or to put their equipment there and they make the money off it will depend upon, you know, do you have a study that tells us what the usage is going to be? So that's very important. The network, are you going to have the connectivity to do the Wi-Fi that you need to do to get the bills paid and all that taken care of? So those are all very important considerations. Next slide. The utility. The yes, no. The utility, you know, you go to Eversource, say, we want to put a station here, and they may just say, no. Because we don't have the infrastructure there to serve you, and it's going to cost you a lot of money to do that. You know, that's the interconnection distance. Is there a pole nearby that they can drop and run over to your station what you need, or do they need to run, very often they need to run new electrical service? Your friends over at the new apartment complex learned that.
Yes.
And the utility, you do the siting study, you tell the utility you're doing the siting study, and then you ask them, what do you think of our locations? And, you know, so when they say we need to be involved from the very beginning, they're not kidding. Because it could really delay the process if you don't get the utility involved. And then, you know, and then there's all the service coordination and the signatures and all the forms that need to be filled out. There's a lot of fun. Next slide. The financials, return on investment depends upon which model you go with, which provider you go with, whether the town owns it or whether it's owned by the provider, you know, but they want to know when they're going to see, you know, their money coming back to them. And then that depends upon the demand modeling that would be done as part of the GIS. Are we out of, you know, we have traffic counts and, you know, we can, that all can be part of the analysis. Capital and operating costs, how much you have to lay out, what are your expected O&M costs on the whole thing? Grants, you're gonna get money from Eversource is gonna be your primary offset of the costs. That's again, why you need to be involved with the utility from the very beginning, so you could talk to them about, how much you can expect to get back. They'll never cover 100%, and it's 50% up to 100,000, but that changes often, so don't quote me on that, but the utilities will have money to help you out. And just in general, what should a municipality expect? If you do this, it's gonna cost you this much, if you do this much. So that all needs to be laid out in the siting study as well. Next slide. Accessibility. For the tertiary charging stations, you want publicly accessible, but you need to design them to be safe. Just putting on, when I talk about curbside, the parking and then the travel lane is right there. That's probably not the best, especially if your plug is on the travel side. So you need to think about in their design and also accessibility, how many people can get there. Grant requirements, again, I don't think, it's something to be looked at, but I don't think there's the big grants out there right now for municipalities to be installing these. And then next slide. Finally, the resilience. You want to install something that's not easily vandalized. I think that gets a little oversold. I mean, there will be some damage done to gas stations, but people aren't generally just walking up and yanking cords out, but that's going to happen on occasion. You want to have it outside of a floodplain. But also the network compatibility and reliability. Do you have the infrastructure? Do you need to install because the last thing you want is your station to be down because the network is down. That does no one any good. And that's the whole equipment status report too. The equipment should be able to tell you, I'm broken. Come fix me. Future proofing. Lots of things playing there. If you're going to change, if there are plans to do a lot of work along the curbs, that's not a good place to put your EV station now. If you're going to be changing the road quite a bit, you don't want to, install something that you're just going to have to move around or readjust. And then just, planning for proactive O&M. And then again, that's depends upon the model that you go with, who your providers are, and whether or not the town is responsible or the company who sells you the equipment. Next slide. All right, so the overview of the GIS mapping. Basically, you take all these criteria. What are the town goals? What do you guys want out of this? Well, what does the community need? And what does the community want to get out of something like this? Do you want it curbside? Do you want it in parking lots? Do you want it near different things and incorporate it as part of your town goals? And get creative when you're thinking about this, because before you do the siting, there will be a conversation as what do you want to be included in the model that are inputs for the whole thing. Next slide. And, some of those criterion, you want to create positive affirmations, curbside only, or do you want parking lot only? The dual port level 2 chargers, those are the ones where people park. They have some time to get out, walk around. So what's within easy walking distance of that charging station? Can they get to a store or some other businesses? Can they visit a park? What's the sidewalk like there? Are they going to be able to access all those different things? And is it proximal to desired locations or people that you want to make desirable for people? Or do you want it to support your parks, your libraries, and other public facilities. So those are all things to think about. Next slide. And then also, you can feed in the negatives, what you don't want. If you install it on a side road to Main Street or whatever, is it going to be in front of a single or two family residence? That's generally not good because the primary EV charging will be at the home. And if somebody goes, oh, I don't have to install a charger at my home, the town has installed one right in front of my house. You have a little problem with usage and monopolizing. You don't want to install it that you block a crosswalk, ADA ramps or anything you have like that. You don't want to put it, right next to a tree because the tree might grow into your system. You don't want to obstruct a hot fire hydrant. And not applicable here, but you don't want to install it proximal to existing EV infrastructure. Next slide. And so I just, I've kept this brief. So I just want to thank you for your time. And then here's a list of different references that you can go tap on. Many of these are quick reading. The Joint Office of Energy and Transportation documents are actually pretty good. I've learned a lot by reading those. You can use those to educate yourself on this. And with that, I finished my presentation and are there any questions?
So I have a quick question. So again, what I said with initially is we have a lot of things coming in here. I was talking to the folks at the Nordic Spa last week and again, getting their expectations in terms of number of people and type of clientele. And there'll be a lot of electric cars driving to that spa and having day spa activity from their projection. So that bring to place some of the other projects, I anticipate we will over the next couple of years have an increase in need. And I know based on discussions with Eversource that they need things, put out a way ahead of time for their infrastructure. We've run across that already a couple of times with our solar project on the landfill. We can't do anything. We're waiting for Eversource to do it. So that pushed us back like a year, maybe even more. What would you suggest to a town like us in terms of steps to do? What's the progression that other towns have done that you either work with or know about? Because I think we're right I'm ready for a next step.
Develop your criterion. That's done through conversation. We want to support the spa, the riverfront park, the splash, the quarry park. We want to support our Main Street businesses. We want to, where are the top areas? And then the analysis goes in, what's the traffic load to those locations? What do we think, what do our models suggest would be the usage at those locations? No one's going to want to sell you a unit for a projected low use area. Medium or high, yes, but not for a low use area. So first would be the siting. You provide the sites to Eversource. They say yay or nay, or it's going to take us 6 months, a year, 2 years to get the support into there. We've worked with Eversource on these types of projects before. We installed the EV charging stations at their Berlin campus. So, we're very familiar with Eversource. We work with them a lot in Massachusetts doing these exact things, the siting and the actual construction. So the first step would be, what do you want to get out of it? What does the model say, is the best places? And then you talk to the utility. And, and then you can start putting some numbers into it and working it into your budgets, their budgets. There's a schedule, and then you might get to the actual construction after, and you have to figure out, do we want to own them? Do we want others to own them? Do we just want to lease? There's all kinds of things that need to be discussed, but what does the town want to get out of this? What do the models say you're going to get as, to meet your goals? talk to the utilities. So, there's quite a bit of time, but the siting is the first step.
I just have a comment. I would think that, like for Brainerd, which is a, for-profit operation, and the spa, which is a for-profit operation, that they, as businesses, may want to are inclined to want to put their own car chargers in, as you're starting to see go up at different shopping centers and malls. But for a municipality, if we want to do it, maybe we would want to do it more if we had a municipal parking area,
Right.
or for a town-owned property. It would be,
Yeah.
my thought, then, as opposed to like the businesses. I mean, if we have to, as a town, get after Eversource to make sure we have the power for these new businesses to be able to hook up, but
Yeah, and
then fine.
yeah, you want the driver who is coming to your community to be able to easily access them. If you put it within the Brainerd Place apartment complex, that's not publicly accessible. They should be responsible for their own, but if they're gonna put, or if they have some there, that gets put into the model as, okay, those people there, they have their charging stations. And at the spa, if they want to have them, maybe you put some of it on that. I don't know. Those are negotiations that municipalities have with businesses. How much you're going to support them and how much do you want them to put in on their own? Again, those are inputs to the model for the siting model. So those are all things to be considered. This is, it can be fairly complex. I mean, this is, we did the similar study for city of Boston, and that was a complex beast. All that went into that. I've got a quick little handout that I can share on, what we did for the city of Boston, but those are the strategy. It's a smaller community, so it's a little bit simpler, easier to model, but you still, the best information that goes in, the best information you get out. So if you spend the time talking about what you want out of this, and you talk to some of your other stakeholders and what they're going to do, you can come out with something on the back end that nobody's ever 100% pleased with everything, but maybe you can get the best outcome that you can. But there's some effort needed on the upfront. That's why the siting first. You don't want to just say, we want a dual port chargers,
Right.
and we're going to put them here, here, and here. Is that where people are going to stop? Is that the safest place to install them? Is that, the best locations to get moderate to heavy charging use? So those are all considerations.
We have a committee that's kind of tasked with trying to find the best thing.
Andy, right?
Yeah.
Andy Bauer.
Well, Andy, but also the BAR grant that we have. So we have the Brownfields group that's looking at what to do downtown right now too, and just that'll be, I think, a factor in their review as well. So. Any other questions? Malcolm, that was great. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
you.
Right. See, Ryan's here as well. Next up, Ryan. I want him to come here tonight, talk about the various projects we have, and also answer any questions that you may have as well. We've got a lot of things going on in town right now. So, welcome.
All right. How you guys doing?
Hi,
How
Ryan.
are you, Ray?
Good. Busy.
Okay.
Yeah, we still got a lot of projects moving over here. I guess I'll run down. I had a list when I resigned of where every project was, which yeah, a lot of it is moving, which is good, and we're about to move. So the first one I got is Main Street steep grant, phase 2 of the sidewalks. We just need to close that project out. That's the one that got completed up to Gildersleeve School last year. The next sidewalk project is phase 3, which is going to go to the end to Indian Hill, then do some work downtown here, and then we have Highland and Homestead sidewalks going with that. And I'm told that is very close to going out to bid. We have the design all complete. All they need to get are wage rates and the final bid documents just all set with bid numbers, dates, everything like that. So that should be going out in June, I would say. The next project would be, oh, you guys could stop me at any time if you want to talk about these specific projects too.
Sure.
Yeah.
Homestead and Highland, does that include removing a couple trees that have impacted the sidewalk in the past?
The one tree at, I believe it's number 5 Highland,
Corner?
closer to Fairview.
No, in the elbow where the two roads meet.
In the elbow, I don't think that tree was gonna impede the sidewalk, because it's behind the sidewalk. That's the one that you got the curb and sidewalk right on each other with the,
I believe
on the
so.
corner there. Yeah, I think that one was just gonna stay there.
Okay.
It looked pretty healthy. And then the other one at number 5 was staying there also. The one at number 11 Highland, we removed last year, and I believe we just need to grind the stump down and then clean that up, make it look good. There is going to be some curb work done where the curbs have either pushed out from like tree roots or just deteriorated. But that'll be like patching in some curb, but it'll be done by, a real concrete contractor, so it should look pretty good. And then Homestead, so these are 2 separate projects that they're going to be at alternates on, because we don't know really how tight the bids are going to come in. We want to be able to say yes to Highland and possibly say no to Homestead, depending on, how the numbers line up and what we have for, capital funding and, what we want to use. So we'll kind of see how that plays out. And I know there were some other, there was mention of some patching of sidewalks over on Fairview or Waverly, which I know there's a lot of walking over there.
Waverly extensions.
Yeah, Waverly Extension at the end there, and I know it's very active,
Just do
especially
one side.
Halloween
Yeah,
and
one side.
everything. So it'd be nice to be able to do things like that. So we got to kind of weigh our options and overall budget, and then we just sent out a connectivity grant for High Street sidewalks to go from Crimson Heights, where we ended last year, all the way through to William Street, which is estimated to be $600,000, and that got sent in earlier today. Timeline on that, I don't know when we're going to hear back. There's another grant that's out there for High Street water main and road reconstruction to go from the high school down past William Street. So it's kind of nice to have all of this possibly taking place next year. And then there's another project that,
Ryan, just a question.
yeah,
You're talking sidewalks up on High Street to William, and then what's the other project, a water project or?
yeah. So there's two water main projects.
Okay.
One we applied for back in February, and we were supposed to hear back in April. Mike has corresponded with OPM about a timeline on when we're going to hear back about awards for the steep grants. That was $1 million steep grant that we went for, and we had put up a $200,000 match, the suggested 20%. And then that we were supposed to hear back in early April, and they still haven't awarded anything yet. They're waiting for the governor's office to, announce the winners on the grants there. So there's that water main project. Then there's one that you guys are going to do the resolution tonight to award the contract agreement to Birmingham Construction to do the water main from the high school to Clearview, which we got a really good bid in. We should be able to go a little further than Clearview, maybe a couple hundred feet, but it all depends if rock is hit or not on the way down there. So it came in at $437,000, which leaves us about $100,000 of contingency, with the rest of it going to engineering. We had 600 total, spent, 40 around now for our engineering. There's probably going to be another 20 for inspection and closeout, bid documents, everything like that. Which leaves us about 100,000.
I believe
So-
that one was signed by Ryan back in end of October, November, the Birmingham one.
Birmingham Construction.
Yeah.
That one
Yeah,
we
then
didn't,
went out to bid.
that agreement, you mean? Oh, the agreement with the state.
Yes.
Yeah, for the funding. You're right. Yeah.
So
Ryan
that's for
signed that back
Clearview Water Main?
last October, right? What's that?
Brian, that for,
Yeah, so it goes
Clearview?
from
Where's it-
where the 2009, 2010 project for the water main up High Street from Route 66 all the way to the tanks.
okay,
That got done and it tied into an old asbestos line right there.
okay.
So this is an extension of that project, and it's
Okay.
all in the hopes that we could continue road reconstruction. The reason we only did the road, well, not only because of funds, availability, but we didn't want to redo the road over an old water line. So that's the reason we were pushing to get these water lines replaced going down towards William Street, so we could replace that whole area. As we know, that's, one of the highest traveled roads, not only for residents, but for people that come into town and go to the schools and go to, sporting events and things like that. So yeah, it's just a continuation of that. So one of the High Street projects will be starting in the next few weeks. It sounds like they are eager to get going. So as soon as we award that, we expect it to happen pretty quick. May see, them starting. Hopefully it lines up nicely with the end of school, so there's no conflict there at all, but there's ways to coordinate. You could do the driveway in halves, and then you could open up Butler and redirect the traffic that wants to leave the high school or middle school out Butler and only let people in at the intersection. So we'll see how it times out, but hopefully it's right when school ends. That would be ideal. Then they get it done. They're done well before school starts again. The other, obviously the biggest project we have going on is the well. So I got an update from GZA today. They're going to install the pump in the well next week on the 29th and 30th of this month. And then they're going to install transducers the same 2 days on one at Cox Road, one at the Portland Golf Course. Then they have monitoring wells that they drilled last December and January all around the recreation complex. And then they're going to perform a 48-hour pump test the following week on June 2nd, which they're going to do the water quality test off of, which is going to say, tell us everything from PFAS to how hard the water is, everything that we need to design the project for treatment, which is going to go a long way in getting the diversion permit approved as well. Now, they're going to then design the level A mapping based on those results. And that's going to get coordinated with DEP to make sure they're on the same page on what they're seeing for drawdowns, things like that. If they need any more monitoring points, if there's any concerns, they'll kind of see that from this. And then they're going to set up the 5-day pump test. And honestly, it all depends on how good or bad things look on the 48-hour test, on how much time they're gonna need in between the two. So that's it's good. We've been pushing. I know we dealt with the drought situation over the winter, and it took a while for them to drill the well itself. That was like 6 or 8 weeks when it should have been like 2, but that got done. And they said everything looked good when they were drilling the well. everything went in good. So yeah, I think everyone's hopeful that this is going to be successful over the next couple months, I would say.
Where are we on looking at either design or bidding for like a pump station and stuff like that?
Yeah, so I sent out the RFQ. I got 4 responses from consultants. Those 4 are all approved and lined up to get proposals. I myself am working on the proposal for that, the wording and the details as to what we want the consultant to put in the design. And the last piece of it is the water quality results. Because then I'm going to be able to pinpoint and get accurate proposals from the engineer as to what they need to design, you know, for chlorination or softener system or something for PFAS. I mean, you name it, you know, I just wanted to make sure we got all our ducks in a row and we're not leaving ourselves open to any risk on a change order for a consultant that's going to chop into the dollars that we could use for construction.
How soon after they do the water quality test did we get the results?
I would say 4 weeks. So
So,
July,
say July.
yeah, that's probably when the RFP would go out. But it also, the RFP, once I have it all set, that needs to go to the Department of Public Health and they need to approve that. There's like a checklist of language we need to have in the proposal to get covered by the DWSRF funding. The DWSRF funding, that's another process that we've been in communication with the Department of Public Health. Back January 30th, we got correspondence from them that we were approved for financial assistance on the project, which would be a 20% subsidy at the end of the project. So they fully fund the up to 6 million. Then we get a 20% subsidy on whatever it is we spend. Say it's 4 million, we get then, you know, close to 1 million back. But they kind of, you know, I filled them in as to where we were at. We were drilling the well. We pushed forward. So the original application was for phase 2 and phase 3. Phase 2 being what we're currently doing with drilling the well, installing it, doing the pump test, getting the diversion permit. Phase 3 being the pump house and the treatment system. The fact that we pushed forward, now they kind of want to know what we want to know. They want to know the water quality results and they want to know what it is that they're funding. Is it, you know, is the water quality there? Is the water there?
So we have nothing else to do until we get all those results back.
They may still, you know, grant us the application, but they had us reapply for fiscal year. So they accepted our application for fiscal year 2025 funding, which would be up to June 30th. But then they realized that we may not get the funding until fiscal year 26. They had us reapply, and now they're asking for updates, you know, and keeping them updated. It sounds like we're still going to get this, as they already kind of told us that they would.
Mhm.
But it's a little, you know, they're a little hesitant, it seems, because they want to know more as to where we're at. So yeah, it's kind of, we just got to keep in touch with them. But yeah, everyone's waiting on the water quality results and the, you know, the initial drawdowns and how everything is looking there. So in the next 2 months, I think we should have it all figured out. Yeah. Not moving as quick as we would all like, but it's moving. That's it for really big projects. There are some other small projects. There's a masonry project that's going to go on here at Buck Foreman Building to repair some of the brownstone. They're going to use a similar material to, I don't know if you guys have checked out St. John's Church across the bridge there. It's not an exact match to brownstone, but it looks pretty good. And it's better than some of the repairs that have been done down there in the past. And they are going to do like Dutchman repairs to the columns and carve out brownstone and replace like the bottoms of the columns that have completely deteriorated away. So that'll be good. And we got a really good price on that. So that should be happening this late spring, summer. We already awarded that purchase order.
Off topic, but since we're talking about that, I had something to bring up later.
Yeah.
Has anyone brought it up to you about the monument repair at the end of Bartlett Street? Cause I drove by it the other day and like the statue in the center is fine. The front along Main Street is fine. The left and the back side of it, the wall that goes around it
Yeah.
is falling apart.
What's catching the weather? The east and south side. Yeah.
Yes,
The
north-
wall, the retaining wall or the monument
It's a
itself?
retaining wall. I mean, there's no mortar between the stones anymore. And the stones are leaning, collapsing on each other.
Yeah, honestly, I haven't even looked at it. I think I got an email from you last time. That's all I really spoke about. I know there was funding in the budget, I believe, for historic repairs to the monument.
Okay.
I think that was for Parks and Rec. What I could do, since we already have a contractor here, we hired off a state contract. It might be good for them to go check that out while they're out here.
Mhm.
And it's probably similar material to repair up there, but I'm not sure.
I was wondering if when they look at it, maybe, I mean, for them to repair that, but for us, if there was curbing put around it to divert water and salt from going towards it and deteriorating it more in the future.
Yeah, either asphalt curb or concrete.
Yeah, something.
Asphalt will be cheaper.
And
Yeah.
probably most specifically on the uphill side of it, because I know the snow
Because
always
really
backs up
we
against
run
it.
down towards the monument, so
Yeah,
in the winter.
Yeah,
everything's
everything
going
runs
at
right
it.
at it there, yeah.
but for aesthetics, you probably want to just go around the whole thing. That way it's
Yeah.
not
Because there's
looking weird.
curb on Main Street, and then when it goes on the Bartlett, it stops, it like blends into the
Okay,
road
so
and
maybe you
stops.
could tie into the main
Yeah.
street
Right.
curb and it'll look
'Cause
decent.
I've seen that in the wintertime, maybe for the plows or whatever, and there's always a pile of snow right up against that back half on the upside of it, and that's probably.
Because with
leaches.
the Y in the road,
Yeah,
that's where they clear it out and
Right.
they push it right there, so it just sits.
it sits.
Yeah. Yeah, we've got to see. So we could do work off a state contract, having the stone repaired
Mhm.
by the contractor that's here. That's probably doable. For the curbing, it's either the town guys need to do it, or I would say if we get a sidewalk contractor into town,
Mhm.
maybe they could do it. We get a price from them. That's really good, but I know, we don't like mixing, state grant funds with regular fund, regular sidewalk or road funds, so that gets a little tricky. But that's something to look into.
Okay.
But I would say having the town guys look at it first to see if they could do the curb there.
Other question I had is, what's the status in the pump station on Co Avenue?
I know they were moving forward with the bypass system. They had the pumps, all the piping out there as of 2 weeks ago. Mike, did you hear anything about that recent? No. All right. I don't know if the bypass had started, if they started work over there.
So it plans on being done this year then? 'Cause I
Yeah.
know they keep kicking the can down the
So
road. and-
we gave them an extension from, I think, December of 2024 to June of 2025. And then we told them that we're not giving them another one back in March.
Mhm.
So they finally started moving things on site.
Okay,
Should be done by the end of June.
all right.
I haven't seen any correspondence for them asking for another extension, so that should be moving forward.
Who's the contractor?
That is Kovacs Construction.
Okay.
That was awarded in December of 2023. And they had been saying there were supply chain issues, which could have been a real thing. I mean, there's a lot of electrical components that they needed for this project, as far as like controls on the pumps and SCADA and, really just complicated parts.
Mhm.
And who knows where that stuff's coming from. It's coming from overseas. could have been affected. But either way, it started becoming, a problem. We were paying for material stored. And then they were just not giving us updates for a little while. We finally started pushing on them. You need to give us a schedule. We need a concrete schedule, especially after we gave them the extension.
Yep.
So, seems like it's finally moving, but I didn't get an update on that this week.
Okay.
Yeah, town hall, that project got done, for the roof and the framing repairs in the attic. So that went well. We awarded, a purchase order for the banner pole replacement over by Dunkin' Donuts and Bud's Cafe. I don't know if anyone noticed that thing got hit like a year and a half ago, so that'll be replaced. Outside of that, we need to figure out, just capital improvements, the dump body, getting that moving finally.
Ryan, do you know roughly when that banner pole will be replaced?
Yeah, I need to get an update, but we gave them the purchase order over the late winter, I would say, sometime in March.
Only reason I ask is I saw minutes from the 250 committee, and they're looking to put a banner on Main Street, and I thought that if you could hit it right when there's nothing else going up, that'd be the ideal spot to put it, but I just didn't know if the banner pole would be ready for him.
Yeah, ideally, we wanted to have it done like this month, before Memorial Day, before the parade and everything, but that didn't happen yet. So something else we've got to push on. That's about it. Everything else is kind of small projects and doing the best we can just to keep up with the day-to-day operations and keeping the guys moving.
I know there's one thing that came up that ties in. We just issued a PO for the fence on the,
Oh yeah,
the access. That was
the
the
boat
only thing,
launch.
So,
Yeah. The boat launch project, we got 3 bids on the fence alone. We had issue with the survey stakes being vandalized out there. So the first thing we need to do is move the fence so that anyone, whether it's police or public works employees, can get access back to the tree line to see if people are in there messing with, survey.
Did the
Because
second
it's,
set get messed with?
I don't think so,
Okay.
but that's the worry. And that's why
Right,
we wanted to
right.
get the fence out to bid before the rest of the project.
Yeah.
So we got a good price on it. It was right around 20 grand. And we're removing a section of fence, putting in a 24-foot gate, 2 12-foot gates that's going to be able to lock, and then extending the Tilcon fence to the end of the property to the woods line. And then the rest of it's just gravel road, 2 parking lots, 1 down by the river, 1 up by the road, and guardrail going down the hill.
Hey, Ryan, what about, are some of the piles of road tillings that are behind Tilcon, are they gonna be in the way of our fence line and?
Yeah, I
are
might
we
have to
gonna
have
move
the
them?
town
Oh.
guys move them.
Okay,
Yeah, we got to lay it out and see
okay.
where the fence lands. Which the
Yeah,
fence
and-
contractor might tell us they're gonna have to string this out before they set it.
And then we were talking last night, there was a river access committee meeting. And there's a bunch of, we call them mafia blocks,
Yeah,
but those. Is the town gonna be able to move some of those with their equipment, or some of them are gonna have to be moved? to get
yeah,
to
and
that.
I'm not sure if Tilcon wanted to keep them or if we were getting rid of them. I'm not sure what was happening with those mafia blocks. That's
Okay,
something we got to discuss with Tilcon, but I would say ideally we move it into their property.
I'll reach out to them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
unless
know
they
there was an
wanna-
email chain with Chris.
line the, where the land slopes the other,
Town, yeah.
Yeah,
you know how when you first go in, like where the fence is, if you cut in behind Tilcon, off to the left, there's woods, but there's
yeah,
like a berm and it slopes.
yeah. You got the
slopes up.
mafia blocks at the berm.
Yeah,
I don't think there's a concern about people driving over the berm because it's full of trees. So people drive over there, they're gonna be in the trees.
Just,
So I don't think there's a real need to keep the mafia blocks there or anything.
okay. Yeah,
But
yeah. Well,
yeah, we just gotta figure out where they're going.
Okay.
But I don't think the town really wants them. I think, yeah, unless we're gonna put together a bunch more bays for material, which I don't know. I don't think we need at this point.
Yeah. Okay, we can find out from Tilcon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's about it.
I have to say, with the number of hats you're wearing,
Yeah.
you're right on track with this stuff, and I just want to say thank you again for all you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, you're welcome. No, this is, I kind of, I already had it all in my head. We got a few new things going on, but, in the evening, I come back and I come home and I just start reading emails, and I'm able to sort pretty quickly as to what's important, what's not. Forward on, any complaints or issues to Mike. Mike has been doing a great job keeping up with everything here in town. I wouldn't be able to keep up with any of this if Mike weren't doing the brunt of all of the work here in town. So it's really a testament to the work that he's been doing, and every supervisor, really.
I would say which mic.
So both Mikes. But
No, just thank
yeah,
you.
really every supervisor has stepped up and really is taking on the workload for each department. Yeah, it's good. Hopefully someone good comes along still. It's definitely needed for someone to be full-time over there. I know it's a lot of stress, not only on the public works guys, but Mike and Tom also are taking on a lot more work for this whole end of things and having to be more involved in public works in general. But yeah, for now, I'm doing what I can to just keep things moving and keep everyone knowing, everyone's mind at ease that things are,
Progressing.
going in the right direction
Well,
and not falling apart.
and I think what helps a lot, I mean, you've got an intimate knowledge of all these projects. You started most of these, if I'm not mistaken, and I think
Yeah.
that gives me comfort. That's been incredibly helpful, knowing what is the emergency, what isn't. It's also given me a crash course on public works directors and what they do,
Yeah.
which is a lot. So I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
And Cheryl has been doing a great job here
Cheryl's
in the
great.
office, making sure everything is processed and
And the other Mike,
and everything is relayed to the guys in the field.
yes,
That's not easy to do, on her own there. So
Yeah.
it's definitely
Yeah, it's a well-run
team effort. It's a team effort all around. Everyone really stepped up.
Thanks to everybody.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
thank
Yeah.
you for coming out tonight. We appreciate it.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
All right,
Always good to see you.
always good to see you. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Then. All right,
Next.
Mr. Beret,
Yeah,
and then we get to start the meeting for real like this.
Tough act to follow.
yeah.
I'm here to talk about the resiliency study that was done for the police station, senior center, and library. I don't know how much you guys have been able to look into it. I know you guys just received the study last night. I don't know if you want me to go into a little bit of history of how it came about and the process, or if you want me to get right to the nuts and bolts and just right to the point. All right, I like that.
It's 8 o'clock, so right to the.
Sounds good to me. To get right to the point, they gave 3 different options as to alternative options to address the problem. And the main problem was flooding. They did look at heat, but from our perspective in the town, what we were going to get out of this was to solve the issue of flooding in the back parking lot there and what was going on. We had a suspicion of what was going on. Ryan O'Halpin was, just to give him some more kudos, was as part of this. He took on more work than I initially thought was gonna require him, but he was a big part of this as well. And so basically, the solution the first solution is the infrastructure solution. That's the most simple solution. It's the least amount of money. I think it'll have the biggest impact. The other two solutions involved reconfigurations of the green, reconfigurations of parking lots, adding in rain gardens and pervious pavement rather, to try to provide some sort of green solutions, as they call them, to the issue. But they themselves were not going to solve the problem.
Some natural drains.
Yeah. The big problem is the drainage system back there all hooks up into one central catch basin and then goes out to the south through the adjoining properties and then into the famous drainage system that goes under the house on Freestone, which is a challenge. But basically you have two 15-inch pipes and then another two different drainage pipes going into one basin. And for whatever reason, they put a 15-inch pipe out of that basin into the next basin that hooks into a 36-inch pipe. So
two 15s lead to 115.
two 15s and two additional drainage
That makes sense.
go to 115. So that's the issue. And until that's fixed, we're gonna continue to have issues with flooding in the area. I don't know if any of you have been caught or have seen how bad that parking lot floods out, but it floods out cars. It also damages the police station. They have drains in the floors in the police station and they run like fountains when these events occur. Now
It just comes up.
Yeah. So in talking to Tom, I don't believe that the coverage for insurance is the same as it used to be in terms of reimbursement to the town. They're categorizing that differently, and the town is not getting the same amount of money. So as long as this problem exists, we're gonna, when we have these intense rainstorm events, which unfortunately in the years to come seem to be more prolific, we're gonna keep having this bill. So the first alternate solution was simply just to replace the pipe. And they gave us a cost estimate about that of about $230,000 for that. A good piece of news is we had a meeting, me and Mike, with Circa, who is the originator of the grant. They're the Connecticut Institute for Resilience and Climate Adaptation. So that grant was funneled through the Council of Governments to us. But they have given us a potential grant to help pay for this or pay for it entirely. So this would be through Demis. It would come from money that was allocated after Hurricane Sandy to resolve flooding issues and damage from large hurricanes. Because we have our POCD that outlines this and we have this study, we can use these two to leverage a grant application out of it to hopefully pay for that. There may be a match involved with that. I don't know what that would be right now. Basically, at this point, we're going to put in an application of intent that we want to file for this permit. I think me and Mike came to the conclusion during the meeting that this is a pretty easy
Fix.
but going for the grant is a no-brainer. If we can get it, we can get that money fixed, and then down the line, if you guys want to improve the green, if the town wants to have more event-focused activities down there, then it might make sense to look at the other options. They really do enhance the green and would make it more visually appealing and more useful just for events and things like that. But certainly, I just wanted to give you an update on this plan. It did get released in February. We've kind of been backed up and I haven't been here. I was out in January, so it was just a little hectic, as I'm sure you guys know. But yeah, just wanted to get feedback from you, report in on that. And the idea would be to try to get this grant from Demis to solve this legitimate issue here in town.
Our flooding issue that we had at Brownstone School in the past, was that a persistent thing or was that a one-time thing? When it went down the stairs into the cap and flooded the whole basement? Yeah.
I'm not too familiar with that, but I don't believe that's that section wasn't looked at. The only area that was looked at was the kind of center core here of the police station, the library, and the senior center.
Okay.
So I'm not totally familiar with that. Did it come in through the calf?
Yes, and went down the stairs.
down the
and
stairs,
flooded
yeah.
the whole basement.
So-
I wasn't sure if that was a persistent thing or it was just a one-time.
Well, so these, and I'm assuming this kind of happened around the same thing. The last time this happened, we got 4 inches of rain in like an hour or two.
Yep.
And then it had happened, I think, twice in pretty good succession, right when me and Ryan started in the summer of 22.
Okay.
And so it was kind of fresh in our minds when this study opportunity came up, so we pursued it. Because there's also no cost to the town
Yeah.
to kind of do the investigation.
It's funny I never thought I was old enough to give a historical perspective, but when I was reading the report, I remembered I grew up on Waverly Avenue, and in the early 70s, I worked for Park and Rec. Where the library now sits used to be a little park.
I used to go there.
And that park, I remember well, any ability to catch rainwater and move it is now the library roof there.
Yeah.
But the field right behind the church on Waverly Avenue, which abuts up behind the library, we used to play football there and we were like 12 years old. And that field after a heavy rain would fill up with 3 or 4 inches of water. It's almost like that, all that water used to end up is now going right down into that.
So there's a
That's right.
basin, there's a basin up there and all the water
And that
from the
goes to the
library
same place?
all goes to the same place.
Yeah.
So that's one of the pipes that comes into it.
Yep.
Yeah.
So really.
It's always been a problem there, I think,
You're
but
we're in a little basin.
we made it
Yeah.
worse.
Right.
basically.
Uh,
But the problem is
library
it's
building made it
bottlenecking,
work.
you have
Yeah.
multiple
Yeah.
pipe
Yep. Yep.
leading to one pipe that's the same size as the 4 that are coming in.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. I don't know why they designed it this way. I know in talking to TR, we may not own all the structures
Okay.
going through the rest of the system. So that may be a complication. I don't think that got looked at. They were just looking at how to solve the problem really.
Yeah.
Not ownership so much. But TR was saying, I don't think we own some of the catch basins and stuff that way. But it's certainly an issue and, I certainly would strongly recommend somehow, if we can get this grant money, just to find the match to fix this problem.
I talked to Rick Kelsey today as well, and he's well aware of the problem because he dealt with it before as well. So he kind of walked Tom and I through where the piping goes under the house, the whole issue with that home.
Did you talk about ownership at all? Because that
Yeah.
was the one thing that Tom brought up to me the other day that he was concerned about and how that would work out. Now, we're not going to touch any of that stuff because it's a 48-inch under the house and a 36 connects into it. It's just a 15 goes into the where the 36 is. So
Yeah.
I don't know if it's as simple as putting a 36 in between those two catch basins. We would obviously need some design engineering work done on this, but it seems like a fairly straightforward solution.
It's a no-brainer to move forward with it, especially if there's grant money involved and
Mhm.
the town's not on the hook for all of it.
Yeah, so we're gonna try to go through this Demis grant process and
Yeah.
and they said we could ask for part or all of it. We're gonna ask for all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll put that letter in, that application in this week, and then we'll go through the process.
One of the options Rick had said too was instead of going under the house because it's privately owned, it was
So I don't think we have to change anything about under the house.
Right.
It's simply from the
Leading
one
up to it.
structure there to the next structure. It's just that one run of 15-inch pipe that I think would need to be
How long
be
is that
upgraded.
run about? 50
I
feet?
get bad with horizontal distances
Okay.
measurement. It's kind of part of my profession, which is embarrassing, but maybe 100 feet.
Okay, so
I
it's not-
always get wrong when I think I know like how far something is.
Okay.
It's always further than I think it is.
But it's not a football field.
No,
That's 300
no,
feet.
it's from, it's the back parking lot, at the
Yeah.
back of the back parking lot, the building next to us that Desian owns, that structure right there. So I would
Okay.
say it's 100 feet or less,
Okay.
give or take, my bad.
Yeah,
judgment.
I would just, that's close enough, but that, not that big a job.
It'd be nice if it's just increasing the diameter and
Yeah.
it's a done deal.
sure.
Right, you probably would have to replace the two structures that it all connects into.
I mean, the catch bases.
Yeah,
If
Yeah.
you're digging it up, you might as well do it at the same
Yeah, yeah,
time.
All done at once, yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And certainly, I'd get feedback from Ryan if he's still available, whenever we go through this. So, Does have any other questions or?
Oh,
Can I ask a question while I was up there?
What's up? Last question?
We've been discussing the blight ordinance.
Yes,
Does the town have a definition of what a fence is?
yes, in our zoning regulations. So,
So would that carry over to be enforced on the blight ordinance or
No,
no?
it
It
would,
needs to be defined in the blight ordinance as well.
yes,
Okay.
I would say so. I'm aware of this, the
Mhm.
situation you're talking about. It's been certainly difficult, situation to manage. It's certainly gotten very contentious, obviously, you guys know, between those two neighbors. I'm hoping, that the fence that has been applied for and a permit has been granted for,
Mhm.
outside of the fence that's been installed there now,
Yep.
will go up and help that solution. I certainly never understood fences make good neighbors before I got into this occupation, but it's absolutely true.
Do you see anything else that should be added into the blight ordinance, like such as a definition of something else or just making something more specific so a certain section isn't too vague?
So the blight ordinance is not my baby, thankfully. I would simply caution you as to how much you include in the blight ordinance.
Mhm.
And because if you include too much, it's not gonna, it's gonna be difficult to enforce.
Mhm.
Oftentimes there is blight, but this is one of the things that neighbors use as a ticky tack thing. So if we get a zoning enforcement complaint, and sometimes depending, it's always because the neighbors don't have a good relationship.
Yeah.
But then you get into a ticky tack back and forth. So I would just caution you as to how much you include in the blight ordinance, because the more you add,
The less flexibility you have.
right, and it's just gonna, the number of properties that would need to be potentially have enforcement actions could go up quite a bit. I
Yeah.
mean, everyone's thought as to what is blight or what someone's house should look like or how it should be maintained is very different. And certainly I think we want to keep a certain aesthetic for people, and I think it helps with neighborhood relationships. It's just you don't want to make too many things blight,
Mhm.
because then it gets really hard to enforce. And it's with the building official.
But if it's too vague, it's hard to enforce too, because like what's going on with this is they're saying it's a fence. Well, it's not a fence.
So yeah, that doesn't meet our definition in zoning of fence.
Yeah.
If it's a fence under 4 feet, you don't need a permit. Certainly the last time I've been involved and, I've asked for, assistance on that was, that they felt there was a sightline issue there.
Mhm.
There is some stuff there. We had Mike Lustrino go out. He didn't feel it was a safety issue. I went out there with Henry, the CEO. It's not great looking. But it's not a safety issue. But if you guys get real specific as to different things that are blight, the building official only has so much time in order to do blight enforcement. So it's just something to keep in mind. But yeah. But yeah, you'd have to tighten up the definition somehow. Or add definition. So like everything that we have in zoning
Mhm.
is defined, or we have a specific set of different books that we have to look at for that definition in a
Yeah.
certain order. If our definition is different than the dictionary's definition for zoning, you go by what our definition is.
Yeah.
So we kind of control that a little bit more. But blight is very tough, not just in Portland. It's certainly a topic that we talk
Yeah.
about in every town. And I guess the only other caution, if you make your blight ordinance crazy, and doing the blight part of the building official job is probably the worst part. So the more blight enforcement you put on there, the less desirable that job also becomes. So.
For Elmcrest, when he was talking about the chargers earlier, not the ones for the residents, but do you know if they're putting any for the public in the parking lot areas?
I don't believe so. Now, one thing to make you guys aware about is there is a state law for all new developments.
That's what I was gonna ask about. Was he before or after it?
So I don't require modifications of existing permits to come in, because I don't want to penalize an existing business from expanding,
Mhm.
because it's it's a lot of money to lay that conduit.
Yeah.
The spa though, the spa was a new application. I think they're putting in like it's 10% of the parking spaces.
Yeah.
So, you know, you're looking at, I think 15, at least 15 down there.
That's just on their property.
That's on their property.
Okay.
But Brainerd Place doesn't have any?
They have some going in there for their residents.
What about in the commercial
project?
phase?
No.
Nothing in the commercial phase?
No.
though?
So their original approvals were back in 2018. I have not had people who are going in for modifications of existing facilities fall under that. Because I don't want to penalize them. Dollar General, they had to put into. So any new projects, it's very difficult to add. I have a problem with the law. I know they have to draw the line somewhere, but you're really hamstringing like a small to medium sized business by doing this. And it's a very vaguely
What if
written
they
law.
come? What if the developer comes and says, I want to put some in?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay,
They just need to pull a building permit.
okay.
Yeah. It's only the requirement that I'm forcing them to do so,
I see.
that I've taken that tact.
Because if he's a good business developer, he's probably gonna want to put some.
Yeah,
in.
yeah,
I mean,
there's
it's
been-
kind of the
It
way
makes
things are
it makes the
going.
property more attractive.
Yeah,
There's
Yeah.
been a ton of discussion about him putting them in for the residents. And the difficulty with that is he wants them inside. Ray, the fire marshal, doesn't love that.
no.
So I think he's moving them closer to the entrance. But yeah, Ray had some concerns. I don't know if he had code language that he could force him, but yeah, they want to install them inside for the residents.
With planning and zoning, have we changed or looked into changing the requirements for parking spaces for commercial developments? I know the state's been doing a lot lately with that, like we require too many spaces for most of the stores in the state.
So yeah, this is a debate in the planning and zoning world. Some cities are going with no parking requirements at all. And that the thought is there, a developer is not going to develop where potential customers can't get to, you know, their clients and their businesses, and they're gonna plan ahead for that.
Mhm.
A big developer, most likely, yeah, I think so. Sometimes though, people do run into problems. 185 Marlborough Street, that is now all rented out. Our parking regulations made some of that a challenge, but the owner of that facility wanted a reduction in parking spaces. I know he lost businesses because he didn't have enough parking there. And in that particular facility, the street it abuts to, it's on 66.
Yep.
And then it's on a teeny little, I can't remember what street that is,
I can't remember either.
but it's a very, very narrow road. It is not suitable for public parking. So there's nowhere else for that facility really for people to park.
Yeah.
If we had gotten rid of parking requirements, I have a feeling he would have gotten rid of even more spaces. And then he would have kind of shot
I'm
himself.
not saying get rid of, but I know people are reducing them. If you're, you know, for X amount of square feet of commercial, you need X amount of parking spaces.
Yeah, so
So you drive by, not in our town, because we don't have any big commercial here. But, you know, you go by a Stop and Shop or something in another town and half the parking lot's empty.
yeah, we don't have super onerous parking regulations.
Mhm.
We don't have a lot of categories. And when somebody doesn't fall into that category, they basically propose their own
Yep.
number of parking spaces and the justification behind that. Brainerd has received waivers for parking. They're under their required parking. So no, they haven't talked about it. It really hasn't been a huge issue here.
Okay.
This is more, I'd like to make the community as walkable as possible, but most people in town are driving to where they want to get goods and services.
Yeah.
So I still think it's important that we still have parking spots. Sometimes developers make mistakes. They think, I'm going to allow people to walk here. I'm not ready for the town of Portland to give up on parking, the number of parking spaces. Just yet. Certainly I'd be open to refining them as I always would be with the zoning regulations, but I'd be wary of doing something like Hartford's doing. I mean, in Hartford, that was a big impediment to development too.
Yeah.
I don't think our parking requirements are stopping anybody from coming to Portland and opening a business. So.
Just have one last question for you before we get to the rest of the meeting. Are there any developments with either approved new businesses in town or anything that you guys have gone through that these guys should know about?
Well, I guess that's just the biggest one recently was Oakwood. Oakwood's gonna double in size. So they're adding 2 more fields, lighting. There were some neighbor concerns from Carousel. I think they've addressed a lot of those as best they can. The new lights won't be as bright as the old ones. They're much more directed. But I guess one thing I'd like to figure out with that is how to capitalize on how many people are going to come use that facility and seeing how we could keep some of those people in town to maybe get lunch here during the tournament or something like that. Because they don't have a lot of soccer tournaments, but they got 4 fields when they do have tournaments.
I mean, they have teams from out of state, all over New England come
Right.
to play games there.
Yeah. So it's a growing, really a big growing thing. They scaled down what they wanted to do there, I think because of cost. But you look over in Middletown, Vail just bought the old Eversource facility there. They're building 2 fields. They have training rooms and stuff in there. And now they have like a marketplace. Eli Cannons has opened up a bar. My niece is coming down to Windsor from Boston this weekend to play 3 games. They're staying in Connecticut over the weekend. So yeah, I guess my biggest thing with them is I'd like to capitalize on how to keep some of those people in town spending some money.
Real quick, because it just made me think of something. With the new gas station on 66, will they have a charger there?
No, they were under 30 spaces. They were under the required number of spaces.
All right.
So the only charging station we have in town, I believe, is at Portland Automotive. They have an electric vehicle charging station there that we approved. I'd be surprised if the site selection on those electric vehicle charging stations wasn't the municipal lot behind the old Portland Country, the municipal lot right over there.
No.
It's going to be probably one of those 2. Maybe the municipal lot at the end of Middlesex, right? But it's probably going to be one of these 2. I'd be shocked. I think those 2 would make the most sense.
Yep.
So
When do you think the gas station will open up on 66?
no clue. They got a lot of site work to do there.
Yeah.
They really
Working hard.
they really wedged that thing in there.
Yeah, they're really digging off.
Yeah, they really wanted to put it.
66 on the left side. right?
Between Dunkin' Donuts and Superior Concrete.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Superior.
Oh, by
Concrete.
Superior Septic.
Right past it.
gas station there?
Yeah.
Gas station,
That's-
convenience store, best way drive-through for coffee. So you got coffee.
What the options in town.
Lots of coffee.
That doesn't even include Cumberland, right?
Oh, I was figuring that.
Yeah.
Between
Well,
coffee
two
and gas
Dunkin'.
And Malilly.
Electric vehicles. I don't know. Might have built some of the gas station.
All right. Anyone else have any questions for Dan so we can go home?
No, I'm good.
Thanks, Dan.
Dan,
guys.
thank you very much.
Dan.
Really appreciate that. All right. I thought it was important to have these guys come here tonight. We have a lot of stuff going on, so I
Yeah, it
thought
was
that
good.
was really helpful. And
good.
let's move on. Public comment.
They went to bed.
Anyone online?
Right now.
What's that?
Right in.
A write-in? Sure.
Just type in on
What's
the,
a comment?
Yeah.
That's it.
oh, there it is.
All right, okay.
Oh, that's the committee on solidarity.
Oh, they're in
Solidarity
committee.
committee.
That's right.
That's next.
Exactly.
Old.
Oh, this is the
monthly
report.
Yeah, this is
So this is it?
You well, I suppose,
Wait, it's hard, a little hard for me to read.
John, you want to read
sure.
it?
This is an eye test, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Okay, this is coming across on Zoom A. It's a report from Elizabeth Abino for the Solidarity Committee. It says, "Hi, I'm sorry I have to step away to put my kids to bed, so I'm chatting our Solidarity Committee update. We are very grateful the budget passed and grateful for continued support from the BOS. We are excited for a lot of upcoming events. We'll be tabling at Quarry Day on May 31st, sharing information about Portland's participation in Middletown Pride March and about our upcoming Juneteenth celebration. The Pride March is on June 7th, and all are welcome to march with the Committee on Solidarity. You can RSVP at portlandpridersvp.com. We also had a Pride T-shirt fundraiser. We'll be having a fun tie-dye event on June 4th on the town green from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. that all are welcome to join. You can find more info on the library's calendar on their website. Juneteenth will be Saturday, June 14th from 12 to 5 p.m. at Portland Middle School. This is also Flag Day, and we'll be observing that by having the Veteran Affairs Commission with us at the event, collecting used flags. That's good. I have a few I've got to get rid of. We also will be having local Black residents speaking at the event, live music, food, and merchandise vendors, free ice cream sponsored by Liberty Bank, and children's activities. We look forward to having Mike Pelton give a welcome, and we hope that many of you can attend. Some other updates are that the film screening we co-sponsored for Fair Housing Month called Americans with No Address had a great turnout and discussion with about 60 attendees. And the book discussion that we co-sponsored regarding the book They Called Us Enemy for Asian and American Heritage Month also had a great turnout and discussion. We want to acknowledge May is also Jewish American Heritage Month, Mental Health Awareness Month, and First Responders Month. Finally, we are excited to share that 2 Portland High School students will be joining us as representatives on the Solidarity Committee. We have an initial introduction with them tomorrow. Thanks for your support in making that happen.
Hi,
Thanks, Elizabeth.
thank you.
I
Elizabeth.
just had my eye exam for the week.
There you go.
Well
Pick the
done.
farthest person
You were
away
the
from-
farthest one away too.
Oh, thanks a lot, guys.
Yeah.
It wasn't actually passed. All right, next, appointments or reappointments of boards and commissions. I only have one. The one person we were missing from the America 250 committee was the Board of Ed nominee. That was Amy Moran, A-I-M-E-E Moran,
Mhm.
a Brownstone teacher. She attended the last meeting that I was at as well. She's fully ready to get going with this, and I'd like to nominate her for the last position on the America 250 committee.
I'll second that if that's a motion.
It is. And any discussion at all?
Can I just have her name again?
It's Amy, A-I-M-E-E, Morin, M-O-R-I-N.
Okay.
Met with her. She's very enthusiastic about it, and they've got a dynamic group. So she will.
So how many we have on that committee
We
now?
now have 7 regular and 2 alternates. She's tagged as an alternate, but
I have 7. I have
Yeah.
7 names already.
This is old. Is somebody off?
No, 7 and 2.
well, Mike,
Oh, I put you, that was.
Yeah, there you go.
That you had a name.
Yes,
That's the name.
that's the name.
Okay.
But is she on the committee or is she an alternate?
She is alternate. She's an
She's an-
alternate.
Okay, that's why I was confused. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
All right.
We have a name in a second. Do we vote?
We're gonna vote on that?
Then let's call the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion
And I could
passes.
scratch that from my Board of Ed update from last night because that was discussed.
There you
He
go.
is a social studies teacher, I believe.
Yes,
She's
she
very
is.
excited to be involved.
Yes, yeah, she is. So,
Okay.
all right, let's get through this other business. Any other appointments to boards and commissions?
Nothing here.
Okay. Side either. Okay, great. Next, new business. So well, every year when we have finished and had the budget voted on and passed, we set the new mill rate. Would someone like to read the adoption of the mill rate for 2025, 2026?
I'll take it. I'm primed up now.
Yeah, you're on a roll.
Lisa,
I'll move the resolution, Board of Selectmen, Town of Portland, Connecticut, dated May 21st, 2025. Adoption of the mill rate for 25-26 fiscal year. Whereas the 2025-2026 budget for the Town of Portland estimates that $5,265,451 will be received from the state of Connecticut. Without this, the mill rate would be 41.43 mils. Now therefore be it resolved that the mill rate for the fiscal year 25-26 be and is hereby set at 35.30 mils for all taxes other than motor vehicle due and payable on July 1st, 2025 and January 1st, 2026. And be it further resolved that the mill rate for the fiscal year 25-26 be and is hereby set at the state cap of 32.46 mils for motor vehicles due and payable on July 1st, 2025, and motor vehicle supplemental due and payable on January 1st, 2026.
Second it.
Right, discussion,
No.
no discussion. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you very much, and thank you residents of Portland for adopting the budget. Appreciate that. Next, we have to adopt, every year we have to adopt a non-union administration pay plan. You should have the new pay plan in front of you. I know Bobby had asked for a copy of last year's. Does anyone need a copy of that?
I think I have them.
We do have one in the
This
packet.
was last year, so.
This is last year's.
No, I printed out
I just want to make sure, okay, got it.
The only thing I want to discuss on here,
Yes,
I'm fine with most of the numbers,
right,
is the Public Works Director.
okay,
I think we've had so much problem in the past trying to find one. And obviously, we all know that we're having trouble now finding one,
yes.
that I think we need to move the starting pay and maximum pay up on that.
What position?
Public Works,
Oh, public work, okay.
I think,
And where is the number on the, is it?
it's under executive employees. The proposal
We
is
have a
that,
maximum 151. Right.
yeah,
I thought we did increase it.
Thought that
well,
was.
from
it.
last
Was,
year.
we went from 146.
But no, I thought when we did the budget,
I thought we did as well.
we had.
No, we increased their pay because
Right.
Ryan O'Helpin is being paid. So if we hire someone, that would still go on.
So what are you saying, to increase maximum and minimum, or to just increase the minimum, or?
I think we should do both. So if it's a starting pay, it's more attractive. And if they get hired, it's more attractive that they see what their potential is to make.
Have we done any research on that to find out what the market is? I mean, I know increase.
That's what I was just gonna ask, what are
So.
Right.
our neighboring towns paying?
So here's been my experience so far, because I've been looking actively over the last 4 months, 3.5 months for this position. The 4 people that I spoke to, were all in the 130 to 160 range at their current positions. And only one of them was someone that I thought would be considered for the job, and that did not happen. I think the minimum, I would be fine with the minimum. We can bump up a little bit on that. Because we're not gonna find anyone at that position
No,
anyways, because.
you're not
I was just thinking to start it at 100.
Yeah, I mean, even that,
Instead of
I would
95.
have no problem
Oh,
with
yeah,
that
yeah.
either.
Yeah,
Yeah,
And then the maximum, you know, there's 2 ways to look at it, I think. For the person that's out there that has gotten 25, 30 years experience, maybe they're top of their game someplace else, they're in another town, Meriden or whatever. They're probably far beyond that. They may not come to small Portland for something. For a person out there that's maybe mid-career early, 10 years into it, I think that range is probably.
or
acceptable
it's
if we had
somebody
it
that's
now.
an assistant
Right.
to this position
ready
at
to-
another place.
That's exactly right. That's ready to come
Right,
up.
yeah.
So I would have no problem adjusting that up.
Well,
We- we
the
still
thing
find
is,
the
we
right-
have to remember too, is we think of Public Works, we just think of the Public Works garage.
Right.
It's
No, it's,
water, sewer,
bigger.
public,
it's everything.
it is.
Well, you heard what
it's-
Ryan was
it's
talking about tonight.
everything that has to go on in town. If
Right.
we renovate a school, they're involved in that. Like, it's not just a Public Works director.
It is how
Public Works covers everything the town
it
does.
keeps the town running.
Yes.
Across, and I can tell you that from experience now, it is an all-consuming job. It is every day at any time, something could happen that requires action immediately.
And we've learned in the past with other things, with building inspectors, that certain things we're behind on pay
Mhm.
and we're losing good people to other towns because of it.
Right.
But we also have to recognize that we are a small town.
Right.
And we've got to be cautious. If we try to be something we're not, we're gonna be financially strapped too. I don't know what we need to do here, but I'm just looking at Public Works Director, and right below it is the Director of Finance.
Mhm.
You gotta be,
I'm wondering if we just copied that same down to Director of Finance and used those numbers.
I was thinking similar.
Only
I'd be okay with
because
that. You gotta be
that gives you the
careful.
latitude, because you're not gonna necessarily, like, unless we find somebody that's phenomenal and they're coming with like 20 years experience somewhere else, you throw them in at the top of the scale. Most likely, you're not gonna do that anyway.
Mhm.
But I think what you're talking about, Bobby, is be able to present this range, which will be attractive to get somebody to consider us.
Make
Yes,
the jump, they know where they could climb to, if
yes.
they perform and do a good
Yeah.
job.
I don't disagree. The brother's a engineer and a civil engineer, and I know what's on his plate, and it's a lot of work. You have to be a jack of all trades and have knowledge in a lot of areas, which Ryan obviously showed tonight that he does.
The-
Yes.
But to find somebody like that is gonna be very difficult.
The attention to detail, the dealing with the state and all that's involved in that, the grant writing,
Mhm.
the example of the well earlier today too, and having issues happen as a project goes on, being able to do that and be able to bob and weave and get them what they need.
And that's the thing, that it's hindsight, but if this was changed earlier, we might not have lost Ryan because of it.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah,
maybe,
possibly.
There's a
maybe.
chance.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
possibility.
Yeah,
I mean, there were other reasons, everything's complicated, but you're right,
Right.
you have more flexibility and more options.
so question, if we were to, as a board, agree that we wanted to bump something like this up, what is the next step? Do you have to go back and to work the numbers before we make a move on this, before we can vote?
We could pick a number now, there's no reason why.
No, we should be
can't.
able to set the number and vote on it
Right,
tonight.
right. It's what's this board's decide. So
Yeah.
if what I'm hearing is, the Public Works Director from 151 to 162
Hmm.
to match it to Director of Finance.
Well, I mean,
Your suggestion?
I know with our finance director, we're very lucky. And we have
Yeah.
somebody who's got a wealth of experience and been here a long time.
Absolutely.
But, when I look at what's in that individual's portfolio and what's in the Public Works Director's portfolio, they are in completely different areas, but I think very similar in terms of volume of work and volume of expertise.
I think you could argue that both positions have so many things that they're juggling that are involved in
Well,
keeping.
And that's the thing,
Properly.
Tom is
This
the
is
same
different
way,
skill
because
set.
Tom has his hands in everything, because he's the finance director.
Right.
Public Works has his hands in everything, because he oversees everything the
Right.
town does.
And I think in a lot of ways, those two positions intersect quite often.
They do,
Yeah.
they overlap in a number of ways.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking to have starting at 100 and max at 160. If we put it at 162, I'm not opposed to that either.
No,
But I think we need some kind of adjustment, because even before we hired Ryan O'Halpin, we didn't have a public works director for a little bit.
Hmm.
And how long has it been since he resigned?
Mhm.
And we've only had a handful of candidates come in.
Mhm.
And when was the last one?
8 weeks ago.
Yeah.
But we've had
We
the
haven't had a
ad- we-
candidate
We've had
in 2
the
months.
ads, we've had the ads running out there constantly.
Bobby, if you put forward what you just said in a motion, I'll second it.
Right. I make a motion that we accept the fiscal year 2025-2026 pay plan with the change of Public Works Director having a minimum pay of 100,000 and a maximum pay of 160,000.
And I'll second that motion.
Any further discussion?
I'll just say, I think that's great. I think that's what I did think before we had made that change. Apparently it wasn't permanent, but I know we had added money
We
onto that because we knew we had to
we knew we had to.
add a sweetener there to bring in the talent that we need.
Yeah, and again, I know I'm repeating myself, but with the last 4 months, having him do that remotely, he's done a fantastic job, but there's a tremendous amount that gets done in that position, and it certainly would help having someone in the
And I
office
think
with
what-
Tom. And it's nothing against Ryan at all. He does a great job, and we've been able to stay on top of stuff, but just all the things that he's involved in. So I think.
And I think maybe you have a new perspective now. Like he said, you've been had your fingers in a lot of what Ryan was trying to do. And you have the best perspective of all of us as to what he does.
I'm not saying that half my half my work week is filled with public work stuff, but half my work week is filled with. So the other 45 hours is doing the other stuff,
Yeah.
so. All right, so it looks like we have a motion seconded. We've had discussion. Are we ready for the vote?
Yeah.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Good idea, Bobby. Thank you for
Motion
that
passes.
conversation.
All right, I think that was very good. Thank you. Good suggestion.
So now do we still have to vote on the entire package or was that it?
No, that was the vote.
That was it.
Covered it. Okay,
All right, we're
Didn't
voting on
read the
that,
resolution
except
directly,
except for
but
that one change.
it covered it.
Right.
So I believe we covered it. All right,
okay.
we're cranking along now. All right. We have other budgets that we have to vote for as well. So all those have it in the packet. That is animal control, town aid, road fund, etc. So everyone should have read this resolution and understand it. Would someone beside John like to read this?
I'll read it, unless you want to, Bobby.
No, I gotta read, refund of excess payments order.
No. I don't want to steal that thunder.
I like to let you
Resolution.
guys do the reading.
No, I know it.
Resolution Board of Selectmen, Town of Portland, May 21, 2025. Adoption of other operating budgets for the fiscal year 25, 26. Resolved that the other operating budgets for the fiscal year 2025, 2026 is listed below and further outlined on the attached are hereby adopted. Animal Control Fund, $109,824. Town Aid Road Fund, $239,815. Youth Services Fund, $154,301. Resource Recovery Fund, $405,891. Building Maintenance Fund, $82,000. Parks and Recreation Fund, $580,898. Be it further resolved that the capital improvement budget for the fiscal year 2025, 2026 as outlined on the attached in the amount of $1,648,016, with $917,500 being town source funded projects, $4,000 being resource recovery source funded projects, $250,000 water source fund projects, $380,000 sewer source fund projects, and $96,516 state of Connecticut funded projects. Be and is hereby adopted.
Thank you, Tim, for reading that. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
I have a question. Are we having any discussion?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yep.
discussion, please.
So I'm looking in my budget book for Resource Recovery Department. I mean, this is a small difference, but I'm seeing $406,891 as the proposed
Oh, is that, it's in a mystery?
page 129.
Yeah.
Our budget book.
One second.
I don't know if something changed.
129, 405, 891.
Oh, you got 405? I have 406.
Well,
I must have
we may have changed it.
something might have changed that I didn't pick
Oh,
up.
maybe.
yet,
Oh,
really, but all the other numbers match up. so-
Yeah, that's right. You says, yeah.
Huh. I was checking all.
We did make a little bit of a change to get those covers for the
Yeah.
bins or something like that.
Oh, maybe that was it.
That was it.
Okay.
Right.
Good
All right,
pickup, good
it's-
pickup,
You know what it was? We took $1,000 from that and moved it to something else to pay for something else.
That's what it's off,
We
about
moved- we
$1,000.
moved money around.
Yeah, it's off 1,000.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Good catch.
Okay. Well, I don't say much, but I like looking at numbers.
I can read the rest of it.
And grocers.
No, and if that's a requirement, I'm gonna take the night off.
Resign, back to John. All right, so discussion, nice pickup. I'm fine with that. Would someone like to call the vote? All those in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you very much.
Change the book.
All right, the next one is for the contract agreement with Birmingham Construction Company. This is the project that Ryan was talking about to do a 10-inch water main from Clearview Drive up to the water tanks. 3,500.
Relatively short one, I'll take it.
You sure you want to do that?
I'll do it.
Okay.
I move the resolution, Board of Selectmen, Town of Portland, Connecticut, dated May 21, 25. Contract agreement with Birmingham Construction Company LLC Resolved that the Board of Selectmen hereby authorizes First Selectman Michael Pelton to execute and deliver in the name of and on behalf of the town of Portland a contract with Birmingham Construction Company LLC, 454 Lopus Road, Beacon Falls, Connecticut, 06403, for bid number 2025-06, High Street Water Main Replacement, Portland High School to Clearview Drive. Total base bid contract prior to any other required change orders is approximately $437,950.
Thank you very much. Any seconds?
I'll second that.
All right, discussion. This project is ready to go. If we agree to it tonight, I will sign it tomorrow. And they may be able to get this done in the summertime based on projections on this project. We ready for the vote?
Mm-hmm.
All those in
Sure.
favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Again, thank you very much. Next one. So every now and then we have to do a request for a waiver of bids for specific reasons. This one is because the only one that makes this product is just one vendor. So would like to read this one.
Want me to read it?
Yes.
I haven't.
You have.
You haven't done what you
I
have.
haven't done
Haven't
one
done
yet,
one.
so.
Resolution Board of Selectmen, Town of Portland, Connecticut, May 21, 2025. Request for waiver of bid requirements, Fleet Pump and Service Group, Inc. Whereas the Town of Portland Water Pollution Control Facility, WPCF, purchased a light submergible grinder pump and surrounding infrastructure in 2006 from Fleet Pump and Service Group, Inc. to pump raw sewage at the Indian Hill Pump Station. And whereas recently mechanical issues have been identified with the WPCF personnel, whereas a quote for a replacement pump has come in at approximately $19,700 from Fleet Pump and Service Group, Inc. And whereas Fleet Pump and Service Group, Inc. is the United States East Coast dealer of the flight pump needed to match the pump infrastructure at the Indian Hill Pump Station. Now therefore be it resolved that in the best interests of the town pursuant to section 12087 of the Portland Charter, the Board of Selectmen hereby waives the bidding requirements of section 1208 of the Portland Charter as it pertains to utilizing Fleet Pump and Service Group, Inc. as the vendor to provide for the flight submergible grinder pump replacement needed at the Indian Hill Pump Station. And be it further resolved that the Board of Selectmen authorizes the first selectman, Michael Pelton, to act on behalf of the town of Portland to enter into any and agreements related to these repairs / improvements.
I'll second
Period.
that.
Right. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. That was 444. All right,
Okay.
we are ready for Bobby's favorite part.
Make a motion for a refund of excess payment, Ally Financial, $95.17.
I'd like to second that.
That was, oh,
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes.
Motion for a refund of excess payment, Laura Lee and Michael Griffith, $42.40.
You know what?
Sec-
I've never seconded these before. I'll second that.
Son of a gun, Kenny.
John, you're just seconding.
Yes.
Mike Pelton.
Mix it up
the
a little
first
bit.
one.
Yes, and then
Yeah, I did the second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, we are up to status and committee reports.
I took some scribble notes last night. It was a very busy Board of Education meeting coming to the end of the school year, so I'll give you my notes. We had a very interesting, and I tell you, it's a great group of young folks from BIS, the sixth grade leadership team. And there were it's an 8-member team, and the kids very eloquently discussed their activities and that they attended a leadership conference at Cheshire High School. they've done some very successful fundraisers and a spirit week, and the kids did a great job of that. Now I'm spanning over to my other notes here so I can make sure I get these names right. They in the public school, Portland Public Schools spotlight last night, they talked about the Connecticut Association of Public School Superintendent's Student Recognition Award. And there were two students last night for PHS, Amelia Dietrichson and Annabelle Marishuk received the award. And they did a CABE, which is the Connecticut Association of Public School Superintendents. They did a CABE Student Leadership Award, and from Portland Middle School, the recipient was Dylan Wells and Maureen Nahar. And for the high school, it was Rita Lynn and Jerry Hall. The kids just did a great job last night. The superintendent gave some basic updates. The one that I really just flagged to let you guys know is that the boilers for BIS have been ordered. It's going to be tight. The delivery is 26 weeks, which puts it into November. And this Charles said that obviously that one boiler is still operational, but it is equal to the age, purchase, installed at the same time as the other one. So they got their fingers crossed and they just want to try to get this thing done as quickly as possible. And they're going to do anything they can to bump up that delivery date. And then months ago, the director of teaching and learning for Portland School District left our town, and that position has been vacant for a while. And now this is where my notes get crazy. I make sure I got it all right. The current Portland Middle School principal, Chuck Hershon, will, effective June 1st, will be the new director of teaching and learning. So that created a vacancy at Portland Middle School principal. And Michael Searson, who is currently the BIS principal for 3 years, will now be moving up to become the Portland Middle School principal. And it was actually, they talked a little bit because he was very active with the kids that gave the presentation about the council at BIS. And they just coincidentally, all those kids are moving to 6th grade. So he kind of gets the transition with them, which we all thought was really great. So now that leaves a BIS principal vacancy. And the new interim BIS principal is Joe Santaveneri, who has been with the Portland school system. It doesn't seem that long. He's been with the Portland school system 17 years. And he's the golf coach that's gotten the golf team many state championships.
He used to be, I believe, the girls' high school soccer coach.
Yeah, he's held worn a lot of hats, but he's very excited. His wife and his kids were there with him last night. So
What was his, besides golf coach, what was his position prior?
He's a
I mean,
science teacher.
science teacher, but he's done, he's, the list of things that he's done for the district is huge.
Okay.
So I think in all counts, we have a really great group, and the other principals throughout the town, throughout the district are there as well to support everybody. And let's see, was there anything else? I think that's the highlights. Oh, and then the other one was Amy Moran, which we talked about already. So that's the highlights of the meeting from last night.
I'll just, let's see, River Access Committee had a meeting last night. And let's see, what are we, well, Brian O'Halpern basically informed us. They're gonna start working on the access to the river behind Tilcon, fences. They've awarded a bid to a company to put a fence up. And I believe bids are gonna be going out to a contractor for the road work. And that's the, yeah, that's the main news on that.
Good, excellent. Anything you're into?
I attended my first library board of directors meeting as liaison. Jen was very welcoming. The group was great. Really, the biggest thing that they had asked to liaison about was a policy change that they're working on for, and they had sent Mike an email on that as well, and we'll probably address it at our next meeting. It had to do with their library things policy and their loan policy. So, but they were really minor kind of housekeeping changes it was interesting because the policy, for some reason, the loan policy, the Board of Selectmen had approved in the past. So they want us to look at it to approve it again for any changes made.
Sounds good.
Capital is off until the fall, and planning and zoning is been pretty simple, just average stuff coming through, nothing big yet. So,
Kind of quiet. It's nice after the whole budget thing.
yeah.
That little piece of
Had
quiet.
enough activity for a while.
Yeah, plenty. I only had a couple of things, but I'll do that in informal discussion, just a few quick ones. Only thing of note is, we started talking about the ordinance for blight and all that kind of stuff. I started putting some things together. I wasn't ready to talk about it tonight, just because I've looked around a bunch of towns since the last meeting. And I felt the same way too, like some ordinances are very detailed, Glastonbury, and there's specific things they do after a week, 2 weeks, etc. Other towns are loosey-goosey, so I don't have a clear idea of what's best, but I am still collecting it up, and I think it's worth the discussion. Maybe another meeting or two from now. So FYI, but I haven't forgot about that, because again, that issue that we dealt with, and probably another half dozen ones that I'm aware of, could be solved with a bigger fence, as he said. But it is something that we should look at, so, but not yet tonight, so. All right, follow-up ethics ordinance or
Wait.
review town charter.
Don't we have to do public comment?
Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped again, didn't I? See, I'm trying to get to the end as fast as I can. Public comment, anyone online? Nope. Good.
Anybody here?
Yeah, anybody here, out there? Want to come in? All right. I have nothing for either ethics ordinance or review of town charter, at least not at this meeting. All right,
I have a question for John.
yes.
When are we gonna hear from the school board committee? Have any idea?
The next meeting is June 2nd. The committee has, I gave a little update last meeting. The committee has spent, what, two meeting sessions touring the 3 schools. At one of our meetings quite some time ago, I think it's consensus that we all feel that we should remove one school from the mix in terms of what we're going to use, what we're not going to use. We spent probably 5 or 6 meetings with Bob Shea and Carl Johnson going through the line item report, cost report of all the things need to be done at every school, line by line by line by line by line. And I think, again, I'm not speaking for the whole committee, but I think the consensus from the group is we recognize that the last budget vote did not pass. I think the group wants to go back to the public with a number that is easily digestible. But I think we're finding that coming to that number is exceedingly difficult. Once we finished a couple weeks ago going through, I think we did Valley View School last and went through line by line by line. The purpose of that is that with Bob Shea's work with us, where we're trying to figure out if there were ways with some of the things that need to be done to the schools, did we need to build them into a full-blown restore of the building, or could they be done on a capital repair basis? And Carl Johnson, the chair at one point, just threw out a concept of could we approach this potentially? And I don't think the decision was actually, I don't know what the consensus is, but is there a way that if we bring this down to two schools, could one of the schools be a renovate to new? And then could the other school be, I don't know what the terminology would be, a more strategic, targeted repair effort of a school? The problem that we've encountered, and we've heard it from folks that have been on the previous committee, is when you begin to make major changes to any of the buildings, in order to get your state reimbursement, you have to obviously follow their guidelines. But there is a threshold after which you basically need to do all or nothing. The example was given, if you replace the roof and your object is to do HVAC, then that may mean you also have to replace the windows, and it's just a Pandora's box that begins to snowball. So that was, I think, part of the effort, trying to go through this cost sheet line by line to see if there was any way we could identify of the schools, which one would have the best state reimbursement, which school really lent itself more to do a renovate to new versus potentially a strategic capital rehab of certain pieces of the building, all with the idea of trying to keep the cost down. After we finished that a few weeks ago, what we needed was to have Fryer Architects come in. There were still some remaining questions from a few members on that committee that we wanted to ask Fryer, and the earliest Fryer could come back was June 2nd. So our next meeting is June 2nd. I would hope, I mean, we all agree that we've looked at every angle of this, and based upon Fryer's report and what we hear from Fryer, I'm hoping that it may be a couple meetings, maybe less, before we can come to a decision. And I know that there are varying opinions on the board, so it wouldn't surprise me if it's not unanimous. However, I would love to see it be unanimous, because I think we've talked about, and I was kind of outspoken in one of the meetings. I said, I was the guy on this board that had been saying 2.5 years ago, when this whole process first started, that we need to educate the public, and they need to understand what's going on. And I said, as much as we tried, I don't think we did a great job of education.
Mhm.
And I think no matter what the decision is here, there needs to be, it's going to have to be a fast turnaround, but there needs to be some education. People need to understand. I mean, when Fryer gave us the explanation of how the state reimbursement process works and how they view each child at a certain age and a certain grade level is associated with a certain number of square feet. And obviously different ages require different square footages. And I asked the question in terms of, I mean, obviously it's like, if you got to do a major renovation to your house and you don't have the cash in your pocket, you got to get a loan to do it. But when you get a loan, you want to get the best rate and you want to get the most reimbursement from the state. Based upon the actual usable square footage that the state will approve, the two elementary schools are pretty close, Valley View and Gildersleeve, in terms of usable square footage. I think Valley View is a little bit higher, one or the other. Valley View is, one school is very close to the usable square footage, which means you'll get the maximum reimbursement. The other elementary school is similarly close. This is like 22,000 square feet over. And that's because it was built in a different time. It was been the front of it, which was the high school built in the 30s, was not only built at a different time, but it was built for a different age level. The corridors now are much wider than the expectation. The classrooms in that front half are much larger than the expectation. So, when you look at it from that perspective, presumably the better reimbursement rates could come from the two schools that are newer, that were built as elementary schools. But we're trying to balance out everything that we're hearing from everybody, right down to, this is, as a historic building, I think is important to a lot of people in town. But
Yeah,
I,
But if it's not a, if it's
Well,
not a school, it doesn't
but-
mean we're tearing it
but
down.
that's, that you didn't let me finish my
Okay.
statement, because that's what I said. I said, you know, the fact remains that even if it's not a school, it doesn't mean you can't repurpose it for something else. It doesn't have to be a school to save it. Honestly, I was kind of leaning that way, and I think I still am, that I think if the two schools that were most recently built as elementary schools have the best chance at a reimbursement, if there's a way we can find to make the money work. But the problem is then if you're trying to get rid of a school and get it off the taxpayers' back, and you take this, for example, then you're not necessarily getting it off the taxpayers' back because it's something that the town is probably going to want to do something with, at least in the short term. What I asked in one of the meetings, I'm not speaking out of class here, because if anybody watches the meetings, I've asked all these questions there. One of the suggestions I brought up is I think we currently lease 2 classrooms in BIS to Oak Hill. If you were these are just my ideas, it's not, for argument's sake. When you walk in the front door by the main office in BIS, and on the first floor and the second floor, straight ahead of you is the hallway that goes down the additions, the L shape. Potentially, if you were to put double fire doors in the first and second floor, which could, except for emergencies, separate what was the 1937 high school, the front building, from the L shape in the back. If you could find someone, maybe Oak Hill or somebody else, that may be willing to lease that entire first and second floor, come and go from the back entrance to that. You have solar on the roof. You have windows that have been replaced. You will now have 2 new boilers. If there's a way that you could make that building as close to net zero as possible in terms of costs by bringing in a rent, it may also give the town a little bit of flexibility. I know in one of our meetings, we heard that the police department is kind of on a naughty list, I think, with the police in the state, because they're a little tight in their spaces. That might give you a little bit of breathing room. The other thing is that when you think about renovating, if, for example, you renovate, and this is just me talking, but if you were to just ultimately decide to renovate Valley View and Gildersleeve, for the year or whatever it takes, the number of months it takes to do that work, you have to pull those children out and find another place to go with them. I think having this building as an option with those extra classrooms would give you some flexibility.
Well, that was the original plan when they were gonna build the one big school, was empty out Valley View, use brownstone and Gildersleeve.
Right.
So Valley View is empty and the construction can be done twice as fast.
Well, but in one
With
of
an
the
empty
discussions, when we were talking about the possibility of maybe renovating this, then the question got a little murky as to where you put the children. It almost talked like maybe portable trailers or something might be necessary because space was going to be problematic. The other thing that came up in that discussion in the number of meetings, and I think Charles said it last night at the Board of Education meeting, I think the plan is to move the 6th grade kids up the hill, to put them in the middle school.
I thought that had been
think-
decided already.
It has, but I don't know if it's, how it has to be formally part of the process, so I just don't want to come out and say it, but I think everybody's in agreement on that
But-
too.
Can I ask you this? What if the first proposition, the one big school, is the least expensive proposition in the end?
That is not the resolution that this board put before them.
No,
The resolution was that they look at all the schools and either keep the schools or remove a school. Because we've gone through that. That's been questioned many times. And I'll be honest, I think this is part of the reason I said at the meeting, I don't think we did a great job of communications and education. There were a number of questions, I think, that came out before that vote. And because we never had a public forum, we really don't understand what the people's concerns are. Some of them might be that they just didn't want the single school. Some of them might be that they were concerned about losing this. Some of it might be that, you know, it was said that in the survey that was done, that before this went to a vote, there was going to be a report on what was going to be done with the schools that were closed. That never came to fruition. And they also talked about, before it went to vote, I believe, they were going to have a traffic study done at High Street, and that didn't happen either. So, you know,
But also, wasn't it presented that it was like 68 million or something?
Yeah.
Those are like.
Right, and it was only half that.
It was
half
really
of
only
that.
half
But-
that.
but I
think
mean-
the study was
but I
Red
think
herring.
this board said that, you know what, it didn't fail by 300 votes.
Well,
It,
the hard part is we don't know of the four main reasons of why it failed. Was it price? Was it they didn't want one giant school? Was it they weren't sure, you know, what was gonna happen with biz? Cause like you said, people are emotionally
Right.
attached to it.
right.
We don't know what the reason was.
But
We
that's,
just
but that's
know
when we talked
That the
about this,
majority
that's
of
where,
people said no.
I
we
think
can't-
no
we-
had a better
but
marketing
we-
plan.
Yeah, I
than-
think so
But-
too.
but
the
I, you
reason
got,
was-
It said
what
no
was
had a
the-
better marketing plan.
Yeah,
It just
the
say
mega
mega
school
Yeah.
group
But
had a
what
better
was the
marketing plan
reason
than
for
Town did.
no?
I'll be honest with you. I mean, I've said this publicly in the Board of Ed meeting, at the building committee meeting. I think one of the things that people were frustrated with or nervous or felt like they were being sold a bill of goods was, and we talked about this at a Board of Selectmen meeting about what number we were going to put on that question. It was decided to pass on the money for the secondary school repairs and go forward with just that amount on the ballot. And a lot of people said, well, when are we gonna, where's the money? How much do we need for the secondary schools and when is that gonna come forward? And I asked that question at this building committee a couple weeks ago, and I said, just to be clear, because I'm new to this group, I haven't been here since day one. Please confirm for me, the plan is in the amount you're putting forward on that ballot to include the money that's needed for the secondary school repairs, and the answer was absolutely yes. So cutting through all the smoke here, when we
Wait, just- no,
talk.
I gotta understand that, that we had to do what on the question?
That we include the money for the secondary school.
But just to
repairs.
be clear, the plan, there was an absolutely clear plan there that the secondary schools were gonna be funded by the savings that were gonna be incurred by closing two
If
schools.
that was
Well,
approved.
but that was what was on, that was the all darn budget referendum. That was the plan.
I will
So
just,
that was the plan.
I'll get
It was
back,
well
because
written
we've
out.
gone around and around with this, guys, and I'll get back to it. You're not gonna like the answer, but what this board put on the charge for that committee did not allow the option for a one school.
I'm not suggesting that that's not what I said, but I was just saying, you're saying there was no understanding of how the secondary schools were gonna be fixed. That was the plan. The plan was there. It was all in. There's been a tremendous amount of documentation.
And then I'll take it
And
right
I'll
back.
agree that it probably wasn't well communicated, but.
I'll take it back to what I said 2.5 years ago. I said from day one that we need to educate the public.
Yes,
You can't just put 4 or 5 large reports on a website and expect the people are gonna read them and understand them.
right, and I think you're right. Public forums probably would have.
When
been
we did the
way.
park on 17, they had numerous public forums
The-
and they explained that and they answered the questions. And I think
But
we
one of the
we
things
missed
that, and I hope I'm not saying this wrong, is that once this was set to go onto the ballot, you couldn't hold public forum because you couldn't speak about it.
Correct.
Superintendent, nobody could speak about it in a way that would violate the.
Right. But that's why, and that's why,
Created a
go
vacuum.
back and
Right, it
check,
created a vacuum.
go back
there.
and check me out on a
The big
record
didn't
2.5
know
years
something.
ago. I
Right.
said, while we still have the opportunity, because we said, once it goes to bond commission, the doors come down. And I said, we need to, and a lot of that got hung up on the establishment of the committee to review what's gonna happen with the buildings.
Right.
And that took a long time to get in place.
But that's the thing too, that we ran into, is people wanted to know what would happen with the buildings.
Mhm.
We have no idea.
Don't-
Everything is
Right.
what
Well,
ifs.
Because those are all 3-year out.
Yeah.
Right.
You spoke to the people on the committee, right?
You know,
talked
the
to-
worst thing
They-
that happens to the building is you give them to a developer and you put them on the tax
Yeah.
roll.
Yeah, that one I think
I
was
mean, that would
partially
be the
a
absolute
red herring.
worst.
but-
See, and when, God bless him, when Sean sat down there, he and I said this many times. I lived next door. He lived 3 houses down from Central School.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this town does not have a great track record of what it does when it closes a municipal building. That sat there for 20 years until the roof collapsed in a snowstorm. And I think that's why I thought education was so important. People in and around Gildersleeve probably had the same concern that if that building was closed up, what was going to happen to that one? You know, people around Valley View may have had the same concern if that was closed, what was going to happen to that one? The questions we had the responsibility to step before the public in a public forum or 2 or 3 or 4 and answer those questions, and we didn't do it. And well, for one reason or other, we paid the price. But, you know,
We're gonna still be paying the price.
sure are. Yeah, and that's why,
And we've sort of spent all this time, we've
Well-
had 2 school committees.
Right, and we're back.
Oh,
to-
there's been multiple committees over the years that have looked at what to do with
Right.
brownstone and just.
so, I mean, I'm on the committee because I felt I brought some historical background, some
Yeah, I
understanding
think you
to
were a
it.
good guy for the people.
But, you know, and I also see the frustration of everybody there and, you know, and I know many of us feel like, you know, we want to get this thing done, but we also don't want to have another wasted effort where we come to the public with a number or a bond duration or any combination thereof that they're going to say hell no. But if they want to say hell no, and we can explain to them that we've done our due diligence, we've gone through everything, and we can explain everything, the public needs to hear a presentation about how the bond process works and how we get reimbursement and how that all happens. That never happened in a public forum before.
I think it's education during the last whole cycle, and we've been following this for how long now? 2 committees,
Mhm.
thousands of hours that have been spent doing this thing.
Mhm.
Some of the smartest people in town trying to look at this thing from different ways. And I think my frustration with the whole process, especially after the last vote, was that the lower information voters, the ones that just saw the signs, or the ones that didn't understand it well, and for a lot of reasons, they didn't go to the website, tended to be no, because they didn't know the details. They didn't know, oh,
We
it's-
saw
it's-
66
They saw
million
68.
or 68.
And I'm not saying
Right.
that one side was taking advantage of that because they were advocating for their side. God bless. That's what you do, right? You advocate for the position you feel. There's nothing wrong with that. 100% agree with that. But I think a lot of people afterwards, when they said, oh, it was only 39. And now when they look at this whole thing for renovating maybe one school to new, having to do capital improvements on a second school, and the cost will be more, and we still have a school, maybe Brownstone, that we have to repurpose and find something else. And now it's $10-15 million more than what that would have been. I think when people understand that, there'll be a frustration as well, but you're right.
And
Education.
there's another whole element to this, is the tariffs. I mean, when you talk about the cost of plywood by the time you do something, I mean, hope everything's settled, the dust settles and everything goes back down.
Right.
The cost of steel, the cost of plywood, everything.
Sure.
So, but back to your question, June 2nd is our next meeting. And, you know, we're coming to the end. You know, a question is going to be presented. I know before the decision is going to be made by the committee. And then, I don't know if Charles have talked with you, but they want to have a joint meeting with the committee, the Board of Ed, and the Board of Selectmen together to talk about this and make sure that, because really, the only way this is going to fly
So,
is if every group works
Well,
together.
so June 2nd, your next meeting.
Yeah.
Are you making the decision then as to what? the
Well, they're making a
recommendation is gonna be?
recommendation, right?
Is that the day that you got to make the recommendation?
I'm not gonna commit to saying that, because I don't know
If-
if everybody's willing to move.
If not, then are you guys meeting weekly after that point, or you guys meet every 2 weeks?
Well, no, it's on the agenda when the next meeting is. I know it was discussed that they want to have this done before school gets out for the summer.
Got it. So they're.
So
graduating 13th
if
last
there
week.
needs to be some
Not much
additional,
time.
No.
yeah, if there needs to be some additional meetings split in there, if that's what they want to do,
Right.
that's
So-
what gotta happen.
So let's say June 2nd, you guys discuss and you're gonna make the final decision the week after, say. A couple days before school closes. You make your decision what your recommendation is gonna be to the Board of Selectmen. Then you want to do the joint meeting.
I believe that's when they want to do
Before
a
you
joint
guys do
meeting.
it.
They want to do it before, we want to have our recommendation, but I think they want to share it with the Board of Ed, the Board of Selectmen,
time.
so that any tweaks can be made
Okay.
potentially. The object is for it to
That's
leave that committee
ridiculous.
with the best chance of moving forward.
Right.
Because they understand it comes to this board and this board has really the final say.
Right.
But they're not gonna make a they're not gonna provide us with a report with recommendations. They're gonna require that we all come and discuss what the recommendations should be.
I think they're gonna they're gonna decide on a recommendation, but to do their due
But not
diligence,
disclose it until we all come to a meeting to,
I think so.
yeah, I think that's and I think for me, it just brings into deep relief the comment that the prior architect consultant made, I think it was 2 meetings ago, where and he's been in the business for 20 years, he's never seen a worse process play out on how to come.
And I
to
like
this-
Fryer, I think they do good work. But one thing that was said about them in a meeting, and I don't disagree, is that Fryer Architects, I live next door to the town hall, which was renovated years ago, and it was renovated as a historic building. In other words, they took that building and they rehabbed it, strategically target rehab of that building to maintain its historic integrity and everything else. Prior, as I understand it, their basic job is to do renovate to new, where they go in and they gut a structure and they rebuild the inside and they do what they have to do. I don't think they're all that happy about this process because we're also looking at potentially to try to save money, looking at doing a targeted strategic.
Well, they were kept on because they were the architects for
Correct.
the possibility of the
Correct.
mega school.
Right.
So instead of starting over with a
Right.
new architectural firm, they were kept because
And they're very
they have
helpful.
the knowledge of all the buildings.
No, they're very
We
helpful.
shouldn't be questioning the professional ethics here with somehow something 25 years ago.
All I'm saying is that I think if you were to talk, we were talking initially about doing a renovate to new. And if we're doing that on both buildings, that's the way it is. But if there is, and that's been the question all along, is there a savings to be had by? I told you it was gonna be a short meeting tonight, didn't I?
Yeah.
If there was a savings to be had by doing a repair of at least one of the buildings, then you approach that in an entirely different manner. And that was the purpose of going through and to see if there was a way that doing capital rehabilitation of one of those buildings, if that could save us some money. I don't know in the long run whether it's gonna or not. That's what we're gonna find out on the second.
Yeah, I think I was hoping that the committee would come back with a specific, here's what our committee's voted on. Even at one point, I know, Ben.
I thought that's what the
That's
big
what-
joint meeting was they call the Board of Ed and the Board of Selectmen together and say,
Here's what we got.
this is our recommendation.
This is our recommendation.
And I'm not saying that that's not the case, but
Yeah.
I mean, why would we, if there wasn't some looking for feedback from the two other boards,
No, I get it.
why would we even have a joint meeting with the other two? If we were just like, here it is, go run with it. I think the committee seriously wants to make sure that that people are happy with this and it can work. They want them, after all this work, all these number of committees, they want to see this thing happen. But I think that's the purpose of wanting to sit down and have the other boards there. If you guys really had a concern about one piece, or if the Board of Ed had a concern about one piece, I'm not gonna speak for the chairman, but why would we want to have you both there in a joint meeting if we weren't willing to tweak something here or there to make it work for everybody? And I think that's the ultimate purpose.
I think we should have a ballot with a couple of options.
Well, we
The
got,
single
we
school
got,
option and the
we got
repair
in,
the other
but we
one.
got into trouble with that before when we went out and did the survey. I mean, that, and I said this to Ryan Curley. After we did the survey, I said, when you put out a survey questionnaire, we all went right to that page to see what the result was and what people wanted, which option they chose. But when you do a survey, there's a lot of other questions that are included in that survey. And unfortunately, amongst those other questions came that other one, and we found that 82 or 83% of people wanted to know what was going to happen with the closed buildings before they voted. And I think that was one of those outstanding questions.
Mhm.
You know, and it's all hindsight. I mean, it's easy to look at it now.
Well, and that, I think that's almost an easier thing to answer because a lot of developers did walk through and said, listen, you've got so many things going on, you know, spa 3 years from now, 2 years from now, that probably becomes more valuable. Could you do a hotel or not? Probably not. Could you use it for a town building for Parks and Rec and rent out the space to, you know, to Oak Hill and whatever. So there's a lot of ways to cover the footprint of that building. Because at the end of the day, I believe, I forget what Bob said for the cost, but the carrying cost of that building was 400,000, 500,000. You know, if there was nothing going on there,
Right.
just to like run it over. So, and 5 rooms rented out and some other things going on. So that I'm not worried about that building. That's the building that's chosen by. the
That
community.
building has potential to do a lot
There's a
of.
lot of it.
Absolutely.
So I don't worry about
And it's-
that.
yeah.
I just worry about just, it's been such a long process that I hope we have one, maybe two, maybe you come back with 2 options. I said and I appreciate you. giving us a feel.
I don't think, I don't want to speak for the committee, but I think they're coming back with, their plan is to come back with one option. You know, and I think they've been trying to do their due diligence because if anybody asks a question, they want the answer to be there. I mean, if anybody said, do you know what the cost is of all those line items? All people have to do is look at those meetings on YouTube and see
Yeah,
that they
you gotta
went through
look at it.
every line item. And Bob Shea went through every line item and said, okay, Bob, can we do with this? Can we do without this? Can we do with this? And he really nickeled and dimed that thing. And I don't know in the final analysis if it's gonna make a huge difference, but
John, I gotta tell you, I'm glad that you're on there, that you have to go to every one of those meetings. I watched the videos.
Patience alone, John.
Yeah, and I
God bless you.
appreciate that. So really,
Patience alone.
I appreciate that.
but, you know, I think
You don't have to pay.
it's a good group of people.
It is.
You know, and I think they understand, they're trying to find a way to get the majority of questions resolved, whether people were concerned about money, if they were concerned about the school down here, you know, any number of things. And, you know, I think they're focused in. Over that meeting on the 2nd is going to be where the outstanding questions are asked by some of the members. And I'm hoping that night, or maybe the next night, there'll be a plan.
I'm gonna interrupt for 1 second. It's 9:25 right now. We still have an executive session.
Oh.
I was about to make that motion.
I'll
Okay.
second that motion.
Are you okay?
Yeah, you asked the question.
No, that's great.
But I think
this is
I
really
wanted
good.
you guys to know what's going on, so.
No, I think that's great. And like I said, there's gonna be a lot more discussion about this in the weeks ahead, so.
Yeah.
Thanks for that.
No, we really appreciate that and good insight. All right, so. Public comment, board of generals, all right, we are up to follow-up items. We have none. I need a motion to go.
I'll make a motion.
You got 'em? You got a second?
Second,
Second.
all those in favor? Aye.
Aye. He made the motion, I seconded it, we just voted. We're going to executive session.
Executive session. And everyone can clear out of here and call it a night.